Jeannie just told us the Conservatives have just announced changes to Canada's employment insurance program. They include extension of benefits for long-time workers and help for people who want to invest in their own training. Joining us from Ottawa to talk about all of this is Mike Savage. He's a Halifax Liberal MP and critic for human resources and skills development. So, Mike Savage, you've heard what the Human Resources Minister Diane Finley is proposing here, basically extending EI benefits and making them more readily available to people who want to focus on training. How helpful is this?
Well, she's not extending them to the hundreds of thousands of Canadians who don't qualify for EI under the rules as they currently exist. And right now we have close to 1.5 million Canadians out of work, 350,000 in the last half year or less. And many of them don't qualify for employment insurance. And what we're saying is that that's not fair, and that has to be changed.
Is it fair to say that basically the Harper government has a very different approach to employment insurance than your party? Basically, the government continues to focus on training. It says that that's the way to make sure that we get out of the recession and we want people working. So your focus is a broader, more extensive benefit program for people. So is it fair to say we're talking about two very different philosophical approaches?
Well, Liberals very much support training, and particularly retraining for laid-off workers. We think that that's, very, very important. But you cannot neglect the needs of people who are losing their jobs in parts of the country that have been doing very well economically in the last decade, and all of a sudden people are out of work. And they can't access training if they're not on EI, and they have no money to provide for their families. And it's a very desperate situation for hundreds of thousands of Canadians. Our plan would put about 150,000 families in a better position by allowing them to qualify for EI, and we think it's a matter of fairness across the country.
And part of your EI reform proposal is that 360 hours would be the threshold for eligibility. How did you arrive at that figure?
Well, it's a number that's been used by a number of people, a number of economists and social policy groups for a long time. You have to keep in mind that there was a point in time when EI was easier to qualify for and benefits went for a longer period of time. But the EI system needs to reflect the needs of the economy. Back in the 1990s, when changes were made, the economy was coming out of a recession after the Conservative years, and we were going into a very long and sustained recovery. That's no longer the case, and people who can't qualify for EI have nowhere else to turn. And it's a matter of fairness across the country that Canadians should have access to employment insurance. It's a very important part of our social infrastructure, and it would make a very, very big difference for thousands of Canadians.
As you know, under the current system, there are these variations on the eligibility threshold across the country, but it goes from 420 hours to 910. Why not opt for the 420-hour threshold as a starting point and just make sure that's applied across the board?
Well, I think, Nancy, that at a point in time that would have made a lot of sense. But the fact is that we're in a recession now. And this is uncharted waters. It was only 6 months ago that the Prime Minister thought it was absurd that we could even talk about a recession. And then the Prime Minister thought it was absurd that we would even need a stimulus package. Now he thinks it's absurd to make EI match the needs of Canadians. I think his thinking is absurd, and I think millions of Canadians would agree with that.
Well, of course, the Prime Minister, I remember what he was saying last week, and yes, the gloves came off when he talked about your party's plan for employment insurance reform. One of his criticisms is that this is a recipe to raise payroll taxes. What about that?
That's entirely untrue. That is not the case at all. It was under Liberals that premiums came down for employers and employees for 12 years in a row. The rates are now frozen. We do not propose to change that. Keep in mind that EI is paid for by employers and employees. There is money in the fund. And if more money was needed, it would come out of general revenues. And if you want a stimulus package, I don't think you could find, and I think economists would back up, that there isn't a better stimulus than putting money into social infrastructure, particularly EI right now. It's got a very high turnover rate in the economy. People need the money. They have to spend it. So I think it meets the needs of Canadians who are having a hard time. I also think it meets the needs of the economy looking for stimulus. Let's make EI more fair. Let's make it accessible across the country. Everybody seems to agree with that except the Prime Minister and the Minister of Human Resources.
Now, your leader has said that the need for EI reform is such that your party would push hard on this, and if possible, push comes to shove, defeat the government, which begs the question, to what extent have you talked to other opposition parties, namely the Bloc Québécois, to see whether or not there is an appetite to bring down this government because you can't do it on your own?
Well, you know what? Michael Ignatieff is the one leader that has tried to make Parliament work, and in some cases he's been criticized for that. The day that we allowed the Conservative budget to pass, the day we allowed it to pass, we said that there were conditions. One of those was to protect the most vulnerable, and a big piece of that, as mentioned by Michael Ignatieff that very day, was employment insurance. We've made no secret of the fact that we think it needs to be changed to reflect the economic realities of today. We've been consistent about that all the way through. We've been very strong about that. But at the same time, we want the government to do what's right and give us something that we can support. But it's up to the government. They have to do more. They have to help the hundreds of thousands of Canadians who are having a very hard time and are getting the cold shoulder from this government. But
again, my question is, to what extent does the Bloc Québécois share that view and is willing to push as hard as you are?
Well, the Bloc Québécois can speak for themselves, but they've certainly, the other opposition parties have supported changes to EI for a long time. I think it's the Liberals that are trying to make a real balance between investing in people but also keeping the economy in strong shape. People trust the Liberal Party when it comes to the economy. They also trust us when it comes to social programs. We're balancing the two, but right now there's a very clear need for help from hundreds of thousands of Canadians, and they would be treated a lot differently under a Liberal government than they're being treated by the Stephen Harper Conservatives.
Well, we'll certainly watch to see where the debate goes. Mike Savage, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks very much, Nancy.